By the summer of 1943, it appeared that the Royal Navy would be unable to man all the vessels that were due to be commissioned in the fall. Therefore arrangements were made whereby Canada would man 1 or 2 cruisers and 2 fleet destroyers, which would be transferred to the Canadian government and commissioned as Royal Canadian ships. HMS Valentine was one of these ships. The ship that was to become His Majesty's Canadian ship Algonquin was built in the shipyard of John Brown and Company at Clydebank near Glasgow. Intended for the Royal Navy, the ship was launched on September 2, 1943. The Admiralty originally planned to present these 2 destroyers to the RCN as a free gift. However, the Canadian government preferred to accept them as reverse mutual aid, thus taking the opportunity to write off some of the British indebtedness for war supplies received during the previous 3 years. Although she was built to operate with capital ships, Algonquin's long operational range also made her particularly valuable for duty with cruisers and carriers on independent missions. The Algonquin tribe, for whom the destroyer was to be named, had lived in the woodlands north of the St. Lawrence River. Their traditional land was from Georgian Bay in the west to the St. Maurice River in the east, and the name Algonquin is thought to mean, at the place of spearing fish and eels. In the film, a stowaway is discovered in his sleeping bag. We learn from the clapperboard that he is Ken Marthy, an official U.S. photographer for whom we are grateful for this film. Before moving into the Soul Hunt, the captain is seen boarding the sister ship laid down as HMS Vixen but commissioned as Her Majesty's Canadian ship, Sioux, and assigned to the 26th Flotilla of the British Home Fleet. She took part in escorting carrier attacks against the Tirpitz and also participated in bombarding shore targets on the Normandy coast before returning in July 1944 to her previous occupation, escorting convoys to and from Murmansk. During Operation Neptune, Algonquin's particular duties were to escort to the assault area HMS Hillary, carrying the staff of the Canadian 3rd Division, whose men were to land on Juno Beach. At noon on June 5, the first group of landing craft could be seen passing the gate, outward bound. From that time on, there was a constant stream of ships of all descriptions proceeding to sea on a very precise timetable. Algonquin proceeded to Cowes Roads, sheltered water just off the coast of the Isle of Wight, during the afternoon to rendezvous with HMS Hillary and the landing craft. The group, J-11, included HM Landing Ship Hillary, flagship of Force J, a U.S. Coast Guard cutter, and 3 landing ships Support Large, who weighed anchor and proceeded into the Soul Hunt. In the film we can see the troopships in a convoy with Empire Broadsword in the lead with the monitor HMS Roberts in close attendance. In the distance can be seen the vast armada of ships ready for D-Day. The weather, which had already caused one postponement, was still far from favorable. However, immediately after midnight on June 5, all hands went to action stations and the ship was prepared for battle as the invasion armada slowly moved into position 7 miles off the Normandy coast. The cruisers opened fire at 0530 and the bombardment of the enemy coastal installations was underway. There was slight opposition from shore batteries, but so little that it seemed that the enemy was holding their fire until the landing craft touched down on the beaches. The assault proceeded according to plan. Having escorted HMS Hillary to her station, Algonquin proceeded to her own bombardment position and opened fire at 0708 on a prearranged target of 275mm guns on the beach at St. Aubin-sur-Mer. 40 rounds were fired upon this target as the first wave of landing craft moved in to discharge their men upon the beaches.